Hello everyone. In this video I'll be showing you how you can build a Microsoft Identity Platform login in your Angular application. As you can see, I have an Angular application, I have a login button, and if I click on it, a pop-up window shows and I can log in Microsoft. And let me do just that. And now I'm logged in Microsoft. So I have these two pages, and there's a restricted page which is guarded by the Microsoft login, and it even shows my name. And also I can sign out if I want to. And now I'm logged out. And if I go back to the web page, I can log in again if I want to. So in this video, I'll show you how you can do it on your own. Before we can start, we must register our web application in the Azure Active Directory. You must have an Azure account. You must go here and log in. And then here you can search for Azure Active Directory and then go there. And then here on the sidebar, here under App Registration, you see a list of all your registered applications. And here you can create a new registration. Should just give it a name. For example, my login test. And I choose this one here. So all Microsoft accounts can use my application. And then I can select a single page application. Our Angular application will be a single page application. And here I must enter a redirect URL. And this will be localhost 4200, because the application will run on our local machine. And then you click on register. And that's it, we're done. Now we need this one here, the application client ID. We need to copy it and remember it. We will use it as a client ID in our Angular application. Shall just copy it. So now I am creating the Angular project. I'm using the Angular CLI. I use ng, and with new I'm creating a new project. I name it Microsoft Login, and I also use the routing flag with true because I want to have routings in the project. So let me execute this. So after a while the project has been generated. Then I can change into the new directory. And here I can start Visual Studio Code to start coding. I can also start npm start to start the web application. So after a while it has been compiled and started. I can start it with this URL. And let me open the web page. So I see the pre-generated web page. I can get rid of that content, and I do that by going here into the app, and this is the rendered application. I can remove everything but this one here. Here we will display our router content. In order to build a Microsoft login, I must install some node packages. Microsoft provides a Microsoft Authentication library. And let me open the terminal. And I'm using this command, so npm install, and I'm installing MSAL, Microsoft Authentication Library, Angular in browser. And this is the JavaScript Angular wrapper. With this we can use Microsoft Login in our Angular application. And you see after a while it has been installed. And now it's time to integrate the library. For that we must go here into the app module. And here we must do several things. We must import modules and we must configure the authentication client. So let me first do the import. Of course we must import this module here. Microsoft Authentication Library module and make sure it's imported correctly. And we must define an instance factory function. So for that, we just define a function here with export function, name it Microsoft Authentication Library instance factory, and it returns a type of a public client application. And we do it by returning a new public client application. And we must provide some configuration object, and it contains auth, and this is also an object, and it contains several options. First, we must define a client ID, and this is the client ID which we have generated in the Azure Active Directory. So just copy paste it here. And also we must define a redirect URL. It is this one here, redirect URI. And the redirect URI will be HTTP localhost 4200. So that means when the user has logged in Microsoft, he will be redirected to this URL, and this is our web application. And also we must define here the providers. First, a provider, define the provider of this type here, MSAL instance, and we use a factory method. And we use a factory method, and this will be our method or our function what we just defined, this one here. And also we must set here MSAL service, and this will be the authentication service which we will need to do a login and a logout. And now we are ready to go to develop our application. Let us go into this app component, and here we need to define several methods. We need to define a login method, a logout method, and also a method to check if the user has been logged in. For that, we must first inject the Microsoft Authentication Library service. Let's first define a constructor. And in the constructor, we inject a member, the MSAL service of type MSAL service. And this service here is the one which has those methods like login or logout or get the logged in user like this, get active account. And we will use the service to log in and to log out. And let us define a function here, login. And for that we use the injected service. And let's do at first we will do a simple pop-up login. And on the pop-up login we must subscribe on the result. We do this by typing this, subscribe, and we get a response of type authentication result. And what we do is we go to our service and we go to the instance of the service and we do set active accounts and response get response account. And that means when the user has logged in, we set the active account of the result of the subscribe. And also we define a method to log out And for that, we just call the service again with logout. And that's it. Now we need a method to check if the user is logged in. Let's do this is logged in. We return a boolean. And for that, we just check if the service has an active account. This MSAL instance get active account is not null. And let us start implementing the HTML part. Let us first build a login and a logout button and an indicator if the user is logged in or not. So let's go here in HTML, and at first let's build some buttons. And a button, and with a click event, I just do login, and I name the button sign in, and also another button to log out, sign out. With the click event, log out. And let me use the Angular directives. I render the sign in button only if the user is not logged in, and the logout button is only rendered when the user is logged in. So ng if is logged in is not logged in, then the button will be rendered, and here ng if is logged in, then the sign out button is rendered. And also let me arrange these buttons in a table. Just simply a one raw table. And another column here. And also let me display a text to indicate if the user is logged in or not. So just another div, and with the directive ng if is logged in. Then I show a big text with you are logged in. And in the other case, with ng if is not logged in, I will just display you are not logged in. You are not logged in. So let's take a look at how the web page looks like. And now we have opened our web page. Look at that. We have the text, it says you are not logged in, and we have a sign in button. Let me try out the sign in button. And as you can see, I am being redirected to the Microsoft login page in a pop-up window. And let me try the login. Enter the password. And there you go. You see it now says you are logged in, and I have the sign out button. And let me click on the sign out button. Then I am redirected to the Microsoft page. I need to specify which account I want to sign out. And then it tells me I am signed out. So we have seen a login with a pop-up window. There's also another way. We can specify the login as a redirect login. That means when you click on sign in, you are being redirected to a Microsoft login web page, and then you log in there, and then you are redirected back to this web page. So let's try this out. And to do that, we must go here again in this login function. we can just, for now, comment this out. And to do a redirect login, we just call the service again with login redirect. And that's it, no other values. But we need also to define a redirect handle. When the user is being redirected to the page, we must do this again. And we can just do that by, let's implement the onInit function, onInit, and implement this method. And here we can do, again, use this service, the Microsoft Authentication library service, and on instance, and then there's a function handle redirect promise. And with the method then, we can define a redirect handler with res and then doing this. And we can say if res is not null and res account is not null, we can just do the same as here. We set the account to the active account, res account. And let's go back to our web page. And now let's click on the sign in button again. So as you see, I am completely redirected to a Microsoft login page. And here I do the login. And you see now I'm redirected to my web page. And it says I am logged in and I can sign out. Let me sign out. And that's it. And now I would like to extend the web page. I want to have two different pages. I want to show a public page and also a restricted page. And the restricted page should be guarded by the Microsoft login. And let me use the ng CLI, ng generate component public page. And also a restricted page. And let me change the content of the pages. Here I will use header again. And now I need to add those components to the routing. So in this app routing module, I have this routes array. I need to create several routes arrays with, the first one is this path. And on path public page, I will show this component, the public page component. And I also need to define the restricted page with the path restricted page. And the component will be the restricted component page. And also the default routing with the wildcard path. And it will direct to the public page component. So let me add those links in this app component in the HTML part. I will just add a few more columns. And I will use in A with the label will be public page. And I will use router link public page, also another link with the label restricted page, and router link is the restricted page. Those are the router links. And let me see how it looks like. And you already see public page and restricted pages. I can switch between those. So first of all, I want to guard the restricted page. I want to enable it only when the user is logged in. And for that, I must generate a guard. So back at Visual Studio Code, I use the Angular CLI again, generate guard. With this, I am generating a guard and I name it Microsoft Authentication Library guard. And it will be of type can activate. And now I have this guard here. And here I need to check if the user is logged in. And for that, I must inject the Microsoft Authentication Library service again. So I define a constructor. And here in this can activate method, I need to say if, then say the service instance get active account. If it is null, that means the user is not logged in. And then I return a false. And I need to use this guard on the routing. So I go to the app routing. And here for the restricted page, I can also set the field can activate. And I use the Microsoft Authentication Library guard. And it must be an array. So just like that. And now I can check the web page. So here I'm in the web page, I'm clicking on public and I click on restricted, and you can see the restricted page is not being displayed. I cannot access that. So let me disable this link if the user is not logged in. Let me go to the app HTML, and let's say I also use this directive Angular if is logged in. So I want to see the link only when I'm logged in. Let me go to the web page. And you see I do not see the link. Let me sign in. And you see now I can see the restricted page link and I can access it. And let me extend the restricted page so it displays the username here. For that, let's go into the restricted page, the TypeScript class. And here I can also inject the Microsoft Authentication Library service. And let me define a function to retrieve the username. Get name of type string and return this MSAL service instance get active account, and then I use name. And in the HTML template, I want to display the username with h2 welcome, and with interpolation get name. So let's go back to the web page. All right. And let's go to the restricted page, and it says welcome user. And that's it. That's a simple example for a login and logout with Microsoft Identity Platform. Thanks for watching my video.